So this is Baruch here with the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and it's my pleasure to, at this moment, come to the ultimate connection of God. This is the work of Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran. Here he is down here. What's beyond? How do we get past the lives that we live every single day? Its challenges and difficulties. So Rabbi Mimran wants to try to give us the technique of the ancients. This has been going on for a long, long time, this kind of learning. But it's been lost. In the world that we live in today, there's very little use for it because we live in Asap's world, as far as I'm concerned, which has very little spirituality to it, even when they make churches and they make big displays, but nonetheless, the inside of it is missing. The problem that Rebbe Mimran has been talking about is our minds. The fact that they're out of control and that we don't even realize that we can't control them. So his thought that he told us that he'd been telling us up until now, and I'm trying to practice this during the daytime, believe it or not. There's a lot of downtime when it's time to possibly be able to watch your thoughts, and that's what he was talking about. So this is the blurb that he writes at the end of the last chapter. He says, when you are no longer identified with the mind, in other words, we always think that our mind is us. You are beginning to free yourself of involuntary and compulsive thinking. Think about this. Think about the thoughts that you're thinking. Learn how to watch your thoughts. Learn how to listen to your emotions, because the listener and the watcher is a higher level. So now he comes over here and he has this new idea here. He says that connecting with the soul, he calls this part two. So he says in part two, he says, I guess, well, it's easier for me to read the English and just keep going on. So he says, you will recognize that you have achieved true connection with Hashem when all your attention is focused above, even when discussing mundane matters with friends. So let's see what he means. What does he mean by that? He means it's possible to realize that everything is Hashem, even when you're going through talking, say, like you're talking to your wife about, what you're going to eat tomorrow. This is all taking place in a world which is created by Hashem, innovated by Hashem, and everything that's in it is what's the right word? I'm missing a word here. Is manifest by Hashem. So now Rabbi Mimran says there is another way you could create a gap in your mental stream besides the watching the thinker. That approach, he says, the watching the thinker approach, which we've already discussed, you can move right past the thoughts in your mind and focus your attention directly and fully on your connection with your own eternal neshama. Now, how do we do that? Simply becoming intensely conscious of your neshama's holy presence is powerfully transformative, as we will explain in the coming chapters. So what did he say? He says it's possible for me to understand that there's a godliness within inside of me, but actually to become aware of that, that's one thing to have it intellectually, but it's another thing to be aware of that at any particular time. He said this is transformative and deeply satisfying. When you focus your attention in this way, you draw your awareness away from the activity of your mind, and in doing so, you create a gap of no mind, which opens you up to absolute presence within yourself. Now he says the words to an absolute presence with yourself. That spiritual state of interconnectedness in which you are highly alert and aware without being distracted by your thinking mind. Now, this is still vague to me. The thinking mind and watching the thinking and listening to the emotions and so on and so forth, all of that, I understood what he says. Now he wants me to become aware of the neshama that's within me. This is the essence of meditation, a practice that can bring you so much closer to your Creator, which is another way of saying to the eternal. Thus, for example, every time you walk up the stairs in your house or your place of work, Pay close attention to your every step and every movement, even your breathing. Be totally present with and fully focused on your walk up that staircase, step by step. Similarly, when you wash your hands, pay attention to everything you sense when you are doing so. Notice the sound of the running water, the feel of the water on your skin, the movement of your hands, the scent of the soap, and so on. He says, or when you settle into your car, after you close the door, pause for just a few seconds before turning on the engine and observe the flow of your breath. Become aware of a silent but powerful sense of presence that you begin to feel. In any of these mindfulness practices, so I read it wrong. He says, if any of these mindfulness practices leave you with a feeling of inner peace, even momentarily, then you know you're doing it right. Let's see if we can get this up a little bit. There we go. The single most vital step on your journey toward achieving true attachment to the Ribbon Shalom is to learn to separate yourself from your mind. Now, we said that before, and he gave us a technique. Once you no longer identify with your mind's activity, when you internalize the understanding that your mind is not you, the path is wide open for you to reach great spiritual heights. Let me read this again. When you internalize the understanding that your mind is not you, you have to really think about this. The path is wide open for you to reach great spiritual heights. Every time you succeed in creating a gap in the stream of your thoughts, you strengthen your connection to your neshama. With a little practice, you may one day find yourself hearing the voice in your head and simply smiling at it, as if you would smile at the antics of a young child. When that happens, you will know that you are no longer taking the ongoing conversation in your mind so seriously, for your sense of self no longer depends on it. I'm going to repeat this because for some reason my printer just went off, so I'm going to see it again. Now, I'm thinking about myself and the fact that I try to practice the concept that he's talking about, not this particular one, but I'd like to add it in. He says that if you just pay attention to the things that are going on with your fingers at the moment, or concentrate on what your toes feel like, or what the sounds are that are around you, just recognizing them. He says, with a little practice, you may one day find yourself hearing the voice in your head and simply smiling at it, as you would smile at the antics of a young child. When that happens, you will know that you are no longer taking the ongoing conversations in your mind so seriously and identifying with them, as he had said in the previous chapter. For your sense of self no longer depends on the thoughts in your head. So he says, simply becoming intensely conscious of your neshama's holy presence is powerfully transformative and deeply satisfying. And my question for this would be, let's say that he's trying to give us different types that Rabbi Mimran is giving us different kinds of techniques to break the power of our thinking and our thinking that thinking is us. Exactly how this works in terms of, like, say, for example, he gives an example of washing your hands and feeling the water and concentrating on that. So he's saying do that instead of the thoughts that are going on in your head. And this is a technique that could be used to help us sort out the noise in our head. This is Baruch Fleischman, and this has been the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we've been learning Rabbi Yosef Chaim Memran's Sefer, The Ultimate Connection with God.